News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.
Today, we're cutting through the noise surrounding a really recent, pretty dramatic maritime incident. We're going to pull out the crucial insights you need to, well, truly understand its significance. We're plunging into a situation that wasn't just a close call. I mean, it involved an actual collision.
Yeah.
And get this, between two vessels from the same Navy. Just a very unexpected, kind of baffling twist in a really highly contested region.
It is. It's a moment that's already generated a lot of buzz involving, the Philippines and China. We've compiled official statements from both nations, and we've also got sharp analysis from experts, detailed news reports. Our goal here is to unravel not just what physically happened, but, the deeper geopolitical currents at play, and crucially why this matters to you.
Okay, let's unpack this. So let's set the scene first. Monday, August 11th, 2025. We're near the contested Scarborough Shoal in the West Philippine Sea. There's a Philippine Coast Guard vessel, the BRP Saloon. It was doing what should have been, a routine mission, just escorting other vessels, distributing aid to local fishers there.
Yeah, routine is the key word there. But what turned it into a crisis is pretty dramatically captured in footage the Philippine authorities released. It shows two Chinese vessels. One's a Chinese Coast Guard ship, the CCG 3104, and the other a much larger People's Liberation Army Navy warship, hull number 164. And they're involved in this high-speed chase of the Philippine boat. It's actually startling to watch.
Yeah, I saw clips. And here's where it gets, truly unsettling. According to the Philippine Foreign Ministry, these Chinese vessels engaged in, and I quote, dangerous maneuvers and unlawful interference, which not only put Philippine personnel in grave danger, but also led to something quite astounding, an unfortunate collision between the two Chinese vessels themselves. The video, you can hear it. It captures a loud crash.
Right, a loud crash. And that collision, it wasn't just a minor bump either. Commodore J. Terriella, he's the Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson, he detailed it. He said the CCG 3104, while it was aggressively chasing the BRP Suluan, performed this really risky maneuver, coming in from the Philippine vessel's starboard quarter, that's, the back right side. And that led directly to its impact with the much larger PLA Navy warship. The result, substantial damage to the CCG vessel's forecastle. That's the forward part of the deck. The footage does show it stayed afloat, but its bow was visibly crumpled inward, pretty much rendered it unseaworthy.
Wow. And we also learned that earlier, before the collision, the BRP Suluan was actually targeted with a water cannon by the Chinese, but it managed to evade it. And there's this human element, too, that kind of sticks with you. Terriella noted that crew members were visible on the smaller Chinese vessel's front section, just shortly before that collision happened. And there's no word of casualties, thankfully, but Philippine offers of assistance afterward. They just went unanswered. So you have this dramatic kind of self-inflicted damage scenario.
Yeah, exactly. So given Manila's very detailed account, complete with video evidence, the natural next question is, how did Beijing respond to all this? And interestingly, Gan Yu, who's a Chinese Coast Guard spokesperson, he confirmed a confrontation took place, but quite conspicuously avoided any mention of the collision itself. Their narrative just, skips right over it.
That silence is pretty telling, isn't it? China's official statement, it focused on the China Coast Guard taking necessary measures in accordance with the law, things like monitoring, pressing from the outside, blocking and controlling the Philippine vessels to drive them away. Quote, they framed the whole thing as the Philippine vessels forcibly intruding into what China calls its waters, Huangyindao.
Right. And Beijing, through its foreign ministry spokesperson Lin Jin, went further, stating that Manila's actions seriously infringe upon China's sovereignty and rights, significantly threaten maritime peace and stability. And they made it quite clear they intend to continue what they call rights protection law enforcement activities. So you have this really stark contrast, don't you? Manila details a dangerous collision that Chinese vessels caused among themselves, while Beijing entirely omits that crucial fact, framing the whole encounter basically as a legitimate response to an intrusion. It's, a classic case of completely different realities being presented.
And what makes this particular collision so significant isn't just the mishap itself. It's the broader backdrop, right? The escalating tensions it plays out against.
Yeah.
This isn't some isolated event. It feels like the latest flashpoint in this simmering conflict in the South China Sea. And that has, profound global implications.
That's exactly right. To really grasp the gravity here, you need to understand that Beijing claims almost the entirety of this huge waterway, despite, that international ruling back in 2016 that said their assertion has no legal basis.
Right.
And economically, it's just incredibly significant. More than 60% of global maritime trade passes through these disputed waters every year. We're talking trillions of dollars. So any instability there really affects everyone.
And the Scarborough Shoal itself, described as this triangular chain of reefs and rocks, it's been a major flashpoint for, over a decade now? Since China seized it from the Philippines back in 2012.
Yeah, pretty much. And since then, according to the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative, China's effectively controlled it. They have an almost constant Coast Guard presence there, even though it lies well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. That's the area where a country has special rights over marine resources. And the Philippine president, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., he's been very clear. He stated that the country's patrol vessels would continue to be present in the area to defend and exercise Manila's sovereign rights over what it absolutely considers its territory. So they're not planning to back down.
Okay, so if we take all this in, this self-inflicted collision, what does it really mean for China? Analysts are already calling it a black eye for the Chinese military and suggesting maybe it could have been far worse.
Oh, absolutely. Ray Powell, he's a South China Sea expert at Stanford, he highlighted that critical danger. That PLA Navy destroyer, it's a massive warship. It could have struck the much smaller Philippine Coast Guard ship instead.
Oh, wow.
And that would have almost certainly resulted in injury, death, or possibly even the sinking of the Philippine vessel. That's a fundamentally different level of incident. This isn't just a physical collision. It feels like a collision with their own narrative of competency and control.
And that's where the international piece really snaps into focus, right? Because the Philippines is a mutual defense treaty ally of the United States.
Exactly.
President Marcos Jr. has warned, pretty explicitly, that the death of a Filipino sailor in an incident like this could be seen as an act of war. And American officials, they've repeatedly pledged their ironclad commitment to that 1951 defense treaty. So that's a direct link to a much, much larger geopolitical dance.
And something else striking about this incident, as Powell and other analysts pointed out, was the involvement of that very advanced destroyer, the Guilin.
Yeah.
It was only commissioned in 2021.
Yeah.
They called its direct involvement highly unusual and, frankly, overkill. Typically, PLA Navy ships, the big warships, they stay over the horizon, sort of ready to back up the smaller Coast Guard vessels if needed. But here, they were right in the thick of it, actively participating in this dangerous maneuver.
It really makes you wonder about the intent behind it all. Carl Schuster, a former U.S. Navy captain, he reviewed the video, and he suggested the Chinese ships looked like they were trying to sandwich the Philippine cutter between them, forcing it to take the water cannon blast at close range. And maybe one of the Chinese ships was supposed to, bump it, hit its stern, or cripple it somehow.
Yeah.
When I first saw that footage, I thought, whoa, that's not how you operate safely near other ships.
And that's precisely the point Schuster made. That kind of maneuver, he noted, requires a lot of practice and coordination. He basically concluded they were trying a new, bold, and intricate maneuver against a clearly well-prepared Philippine crew without either of those prerequisites, meaning the practice and coordination, and paid the price for it. Alessio Padalano, he's a professor of war and strategy in East Asia, he echoed this, added that the maneuver showed no seamanship-like behavior. He called it highly unprofessional and dangerous from intent to execution. It really suggests a lack of proper training or perhaps overconfidence in executing such aggressive tactics.
And the numbers on the water, they're also pretty stark, aren't they? It gives you a sense of the power imbalance. Powell's monitoring showed China had at least 7 Coast Guard ships and 14 maritime militia vessels in the area.
14 militia, yeah.
Compared to only 4 Philippine vessels?
Yeah.
That's a significant disparity right there.
Huge disparity. And this whole incident, really from start to finish, it perfectly illustrates a fear that's been around for a long time in the South China Sea, which is that one mistake, one miscalculation by one captain or one pilot could very easily escalate, potentially into a superpower military confrontation. Padalano put it really succinctly, I thought. He said, both Chinese assets display hostile intent to a point that when they seemingly miss the target, they end up colliding, reinforcing the point that both safety distances and behavior were so aggressive that they couldn't avoid each other. This wasn't just an accidental brush. It was the direct, foreseeable consequence of overly aggressive tactics.
And stepping back even further, that U.S. commitment to the Philippines, It ties into an even larger strategic concern in the region, doesn't it? Taiwan.
Yeah.
President Marcos Jr. has recently warned about the Philippines' potential involvement if a conflict breaks out over Taiwan, which, China's rulers seem increasingly prepared to annex. And with U.S. backing of Taiwan, any attempt like that threatens to spiral into something much broader, a regional, maybe even global conflict.
And it raises that important question. Why is Taiwan so relevant to the Philippines geographically? Well, the Philippines lies just on the other side of a really crucial sea passage near Taiwan, the Bashi Channel.
Right, a strategic choke point.
Exactly, a key choke point. And furthermore, there are over 100,000 Philippine nationals living and working in Taiwan. They would need evacuation in the event of a conflict, which is a huge humanitarian challenge for Manila to consider.
Beijing, well, pretty predictably, accused Marcos of playing with fire with those comments about Taiwan. But Marcos pushed back, didn't he? He said they'd misinterpreted his comments for propaganda purposes. He clarified, saying, war over Taiwan will drag the Philippines kicking and screaming into the conflict. That is what I was trying to say. It's just a stark acknowledgement of their unavoidable geographical reality, I suppose.
It really is.
So this deep dive into just a single incident near Scarborough Shoal, it really reveals layers, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Layers of complex geopolitical issues, from, navigational blunders and these wildly conflicting claims to the very real risk of regional escalation and maybe even broader international conflict. It's like a snapshot of the high stakes in these contested waters, where one misstep, especially one driven by aggression, can have just monumental consequences.
Yeah, we've seen how a tactical error seemingly born from aggressive intent can backfire, have unforeseen consequences not just for the intended target, but for the aggressor themselves, and how differing narratives can completely obscure the truth of what actually happened on the water. This situation really underscores the critical importance of de-escalation, professionalism, and just clarity in these incredibly volatile environments.
We certainly hope this deep dive has given you a clearer, maybe more nuanced understanding of this evolving situation.
So here's something to think about. If a military force or even a Coast Guard seems to prioritize aggressive posturing over basic seamanship and safety, what does that signal about their operational culture, maybe their long-term strategic goals? And what are the potential ripple effects when a nation's tactics lead to, self-inflicted damage in such a high-stakes arena like the South China Sea?
Yeah, definitely something to mull over. We encourage you to keep thinking about those connections. Thank you for diving deep with us.
News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.